Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees do not eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine on itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other. No matter how difficult it is, life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you.
Good morning, viewers. Thank you very much. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting from the Political Command Center in London. Good morning, all of you in Kenya, Nairobi, across the continent of Africa. Thank you very much. This Punchline Africa Television, together with Punchline, the MATSANGA Twitter space, and the Radio Punchline Africa, and the Africa World Media, that will be doing its job for Africa forever up to the end of my last time and last iota on planet Earth. Thank you very much, viewers. This show is a global trends. We shall begin with Miriam giving us the house cleaning or housekeeping exercise, news headlines, newspaper headlines across Africa, in Kenya and in Britain. Then later on, we can come back and start our topic. Our topic today is rather very, very painful topic. What has destabilized Africa? Is it we started with slavery, we came with World War II, World War I and World War II. After the scramble for Africa, after slavery, scramble for Africa, World War I, World War II. After that, we got our independence. And therefore, the struggle for democracy, elections started. Are we safe? The entire Africa needs a new electoral system. Everything needs, we need to look at our democracy. What type of democracy we want to take? If we are to move out of the wars, out of the conflict, out of remembrance of slavery. I was taken by Kamala Harris in her speech in Ghana. She cried tears. She stopped short of saying, why did we do it? The more we lament about slavery, the more problems we bring imperialism closer to our doorsteps. The more we fight and look for electoral systems, the more we talk about a bad election on African continent, the more designs the imperial machinery. I'm going to reveal to you today something that I have never, that I've researched on my own, and you see everybody will take it. Nobody knows what is going to happen. Let me tell you frankly, let me not exhaust the topic. We are coming to. Let's come back to Miriam in Nairobi. Morning, Alif Zwanda joining us in Nairobi also. Thank you very much. Test the microphone and we know you are present.
Good morning, Dr. Masanga. Good morning, Miriam. Yes, I'm happy to see all of you happy and strong.
Thank you very much. Happy and strong. And we are still strong. We have never left. We have told everybody to redempt. Redemption strategy is the only way out. You have nowhere to go. Come to MATSANGA. Dr. MATSANGA, he did it. He got it. It will work. It has to work. For Africa to be free, don't mess around. Don't tell stories. Don't threaten anybody. If you want a better Africa, there is internet now. There is Twitter can overthrow a government. Did you know that? Twitter space, if people come there, millions, they take you down. Yeah, there are so many tools of analysis. Don't threaten people. Africa, just be stable. Nigeria, I want somebody to explain to me here. But I feel like going into this topic direct. But let me give you time. Unless you stop me and say, hey, you are the director on the ground in Nairobi. Stop me and say, let's get the news for us, Dr. MATSANGA. I am very eager to tell you some things that annoy me in Africa. I wish I were white. Thank you. Back to you.
All right, let me just get this out of the way quickly. The headlines from Kenya this morning. The Standard newspaper, intrigues that led to big climb down after weeks of hardened positions. President William Ruto offers olive branch by proposing a bipartisan approach through Parliament to resolve the issues. Azimio leader Raila Odinga calls off protest amid conditions. And then Isaac, how politicians held IEBC captive, that is also there. The Daily Nation, reason at last. That is the main headline. And the drama at Bomas ahead of poll results. That story is on page 2 and 3. And then the Star newspaper, Ruto backs down after meeting with Raila emissaries. Okay. And others from Uganda, Daily Monitor, Nalubale Kira Dam flows spark warning. The Nation, governors NFIU on coalition course over cash withdrawal. The Daily Trust, also from Nigeria, ripples over Obi's religious war fund conversations with Ayedepo. This day from Nigeria, Tinubu begins team building, considers Baja Biamila chief of staff. The Citizen from Tanzania, just how safe is your tap water? The Daily News from Zimbabwe, parties sing from same hymn book as they meet in Bio to ensure peaceful polls. The Newsday from Zimbabwe, Passion Java taunts Zimbos over gold theft. And the New Times from Rwanda, how Kigali nipped street vendor menace in the bud. That is what we have there. And just a few newspapers from the UK, the Daily Telegraph, ethnicity of grooming gangs cannot be ignored, police told. The Guardian, NHS delays risk harming thousands of children. The Daily Express, woke politicians putting women at risk. And the Daily Mirror, guess who doesn't have to worry about energy bills? Home Secretary saves £25,000 through expenses loophole. The Metro, the Easter Holy delays. There's what you have there. And the Sun Sport, gone to port. That is what we have there, Doc. That is the latest headlines. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Miriam, for analyzing the newspaper headlines across the continent of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa today stands at crossroads. It stands, and I think let this be the takeaway, then we can go into our nitty-gritty, then later on disappear. Because the first words are always very good than the last one. You get tired. And so, let me start exactly this way, as a takeaway. Today, Africa stands at crossroads. Does it look back at slavery? Does it look back at the scramble for Africa? where each European country scrambled to take part of our continent, a nation, each a part as part of our soil, part of our sovereignty, taken out in the Berlin Conference by Bismarck. Does Africa, after that, was it used again for the World War I and the World War II? The wars came, Africa again became a buffer zone to carry the baggage of the World War I, World War II. Africa then moved forward. We started emancipation. We started agitating ourselves for agitation for democracy, calls for democracy, for independence. We struggled. We got our independence. The first country in Africa, 1957, was Ghana under Kwame Nkrumah, to nurture in a new dispensation of democracy. What happened then? Second phase, the last phase which Africa faces, which started facing, was the overthrow of governments by the same colonial masters who failed. The new rulers were not up to date. After that, the introduction of elections. Every 5 years, elections. The introduction of elections, 4 years, there is a fury which I have not understood as a person. I haven't known where in the Plateau Republic, where it was written that elections should be conducted every 5 years. Two things have remained disturbing Africa as these factors that have led us being called a dark continent: elections and democracy. We seem not to understand elections and democracy. We seem not to learn the lessons we have moved, the areas we have moved from slavery up to today, to be free, not slaves. But we are not free, we are still enslaved by something that was brought upon us, called elections and democracy. How were Africans, richest Africans, doing the trans-Saharan trade, knowing that commerce was important? How could they not know that elections and democracy was important? Someone brought a doctrine of elections using religion, Bible. We are divided into Catholics, Protestants. For the sake of my country, Uganda, Muslims, our religions were not taken into consideration. Even when we know, or we knew up to today in Africa, we have our values and we know that our religions, also we pray. There's somebody up there. There's no African man who was praying looking down. They all prayed looking up. The only problem is that we didn't have a name for that thing. And here we are, we got into a problem. We are left with something called elections and democracy. That is where Africa stands today, with elections and democracy. What has killed Africa today? Every African country that goes to elections except South Africa, where the post-election moment becomes the real moment that people go to parliament and argue their cases. The rest of African countries have a fight after elections. If I'm wrong, tell me. Ghana has tried, but Mahama goes to court. Twice he has gone to court contesting the win of Nana Addo. And Nana Addo has won twice. In Nigeria, do you call it an election? Or it was just simply a selection? In my country, Uganda, 9 million people disappeared and went to heaven or hell and then came back after elections. In Nigeria, for example, 68 million people went to hell or heaven, then they returned after elections. Is there something that has happened about our elections? Is there something that the imperial machinery fixed into elections and democracy that keeps us all the time fighting? That is what every African should start asking. Why is it every 5 years, every 4 years, someone has to die because of elections? Someone has to die because of no democracy. Why? Yet, in these countries which introduce democracy, people don't die because of elections. Some of them don't even vote. Some of them have rules that force people to vote. Is it time to change election management in Africa? And we have tamper-proof electoral systems that will not guarantee us chaos at the end of every election. Thank you very much. I rest my case. If I am wrong, time will tell. Obstacle that kills Africa all the time up to today: elections and democracy. We have no problem. It keeps us busy for the next 5 years. Then it keeps us busy for the next 5 years. We are quarreling, we are fighting, we are killing each other, while our oil, diamonds, gold, platinum, lithium, coke, everything, name it, that grows in Africa is taken away. Isn't it time for you to rethink what you can do for Africa and not Africa, and what Africa can do for you? Rethink from slavery up to election and democracy. Haven't we learned enough lessons? I rest my case.
Very well. Thank you for that submission. Wanda MATSANGA, good morning.
Good morning to you, Miriam.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, I'm sure you are listening. Is there something there that perhaps you've picked from that submission by Doc?
In fact, listening to submission from Dr. MATSANGA, it indeed needs Africans to wake up and rethink and start a journey of full transformation. Because as for now, when you look into the imperialism, we are still under imperialism today. What only changed, or the only thing that changed, was the nature of imperialism. Because with imperialism, it's just the control of another country. But now what we are having is that the control of Africa is not through colonization, but it's through something else. Therefore, as Dr. MATSANGA puts it, that for imperialism to totally come to an end, then a full realization of Africa, with all the potentials now coming in to serve the interest of Africans, then we Africans are supposed to change the dynamics of our continent. That we are still holding on the old days. But as we are still holding on the old days, it is true that they are still working. That you look into the geopolitical realignments, you look into the appetite which the rest of the world have on Africa, it tells you the kind of continent or the kind of home we are having. That you have a home, but your neighbor is so interested to come and count how many bedrooms are you having, how many are the taps running or they're not running. Then this neighbor goes an extra mile and tells you, I'll repaint this section of your room if you give me the 3 rooms so that my family come and take control of this. And therefore, the imperialism today in Africa comes in form of elections, and comes in the sense that the leaders that we have in Africa rarely serves the interest of Africans. They serve the interest of the interest of the Western world. Therefore, it's time that we relook into this democracy and the elections. I fail to understand why we keep having elections that are funded by the imperialists. That we have an imperialist who have an interest in your riches, in what you have. Then this person tells you, I'm going to fund your process of getting a person who will be the manager of your resources. Don't we think that this person who has an interest in what we have in our riches, and now coming in with an interest of funding the process of getting the manager who will manage these resources, is having a card that they are hiding? But we keep celebrating this. We keep celebrating the Western world. Any other time they give us the billions to promote or to facilitate the democracy and the elections. Under the democracy, we are slightly trying. But under the elections as an element of democracy, we are totally failing. The elections are being used to facilitate imperialism, but we are yet to open eyes.
Okay.
Someone comes, gives you 2 billion, but gets a leader that will steal for him 20 billion. So it's your own money that is being used to get a leader that will still further steal, so that we keep having the same cycle. The Western world do not help Africans. Instead, it's our own money and our own efforts that is being used. That we keep getting a section of it, a fraction of it, then we keep on creating the same cycle. Therefore, as Dr. MATSANGA puts it, it's a high time that we look at, we go back to the drawing board, look into imperialism as a word, digest that statement, look into how it is practiced, then ask ourselves, are we still under the imperialism? If we are still under imperialism to which we are still under it, then we look into it. Because from it, it's a bad thing, then we find a formula of walking out from it. Miriam.
Okay. All right. So a few days ago, China held a summit on democracy, believe it or not. China held a summit on democracy, and it did invite over 100 countries, some of them politicians, scholars, and experts in different fields there. And this gathering was very interesting. So some of the things that were discussed, they focused, of course, on democracy, that is one, on sustainable development, innovation, global governance, diversity, and modernization. And what was a takeaway from that summit was that there is no single formula or model for democracy, saying that each country has its own political culture and national needs, which I think is very critical. And sometimes when these champions of the Western democracy, the US and the UK and Europe and the Western world, and they keep pushing this Western democracy idea, we saw how that has worked for Iraq. We've seen they're really trying that with Libya and these other countries, that perhaps the setting or the premise of the Western type of democracy may not really capture the political culture, the national interest, and the people as they are. It does not really bring that very well. So we've seen that has really backfired. So from this summit, the takeaway was there is no single formula or a model for democracy, but each country should be able to practice a kind of democracy and pursue that is really alive to its needs, that is truly alive to who they are as a people. And at this point, as you've mentioned, and I think also Dr. underscored that, as much as we are trying to embrace this democracy thing, on one side we decide to to implement it in a way that suits the interest of the powers that be at that moment. And in other aspects, we really don't care about this as doing a proper election that is a very important composite of this democratic Western democracy that we try to embrace. So are we at crossroads here in Africa? Because clearly this Western democracy is not properly fitting within our context. So what do we do? Do we explore these others, Doc, these other perhaps ways of democratic practices as was discussed in this democracy summit that was hosted by China?
First of all, Miriam, I want to agree with China conference very clearly, because the biggest problem that we have seen, if you trace back historical problems that were hit on Africa: slavery, partitioning, World War I, World War II. You know, these are things that never worked on China. The only thing that worked majorly on China was 1949 revolution of Mao Zedong, when the Chinese took away the leaders, their leaders, and replaced it with a communist system, which the West tried to colonize China. That's why you find the same hegemony of imperialism is in Hong Kong. Miriam, you can see, you trace back the slavery, the type of slavery, the type of mercantile capitalism, that Britain ended up having a territory, a city in China, and said, this is our city, and we shall govern it from London. Now, what China is saying is this: until they surrendered this city, now it is in the hands of the Chinese, because that was the agreement. They would have been fought. They did not, they avoided a war, and they went down to say, let's govern it for some time. Hong Kong grew against the Communist Party likes. The Communist Party never liked Hong Kong to grow. But when you look at now, what China is suggesting, 40 years ago, China was the poorest country on planet Earth, refused to be a member of the United Nations Security Council, denied access in most countries except Tanzania and Uganda. 40 years ago, China had one rice scheme called Kibimba in Uganda that was feeding millions and millions of Chinese, and half was left for Ugandans. They came to dig in order to feed their people. Today, China feeds us. Today, China loans us. Today, China gives us the impetus, the direction, where to go and not to go. These are some of the things. These are some of the things that we need to look at. Do we need to go with a level of Westminster democracy, with the word democracy? Do we need to go with the level of talking about elections? Why is it that South African elections in Africa is stable? Surely, Wanda and Miriam. Why? Because it is a post-proportional representation. All people, all areas, they have worked out a method that if one country, like my country, Uganda, if we did a proportional representation system, there is a political word that post something, Miriam, you can Google it. It is serious system that safeguards no quarrels, no fights, no winner. Everybody, whoever has won, is given to govern. Is there something something wrong that Africa has done. Why is it that we always fight because of electoral systems? Why is it that our electoral systems, Miriam, in Africa is measured that the current system is that, did you realize that the current computerized system does not go beyond 30 million people? Can you look at that now? Can you look at that? Look at Nigerian elections, Miriam. I've discovered something that no scientist can discover. And this is called MATSANGA theory. The biometrics have been designed not to go beyond 30 million. Yenye muko hapa mnasema wazungu wazuri. No! Have you seen the Nigerian elections? Have you seen the Nigerian elections? Miriam, read the figures of Nigerian election. The winner, the second, the third, the fourth. And there was 94 million people, registered voters. Allah! Have you telling me I'm foolish? 68 did not turn up. And then the president of Nigeria is elected on 24 million, 8, 6, and another 6, 12, I think 24, about there, isn't it? The other one got about 1.5, and the other smaller parties. It doesn't pass 30 million. So somebody has designed this machine not to pass 30 million.
But Doc, we had predicted, owing to the factors leading to Nigeria's elections, we had predicted it might not go past 30.
We knew.
Yeah.
But we did not know the problem underneath. I went further to discuss why. Now I will not touch your place. I will leave you to guess for yourselves. I will leave you to guess for yourselves. I will leave you to guess for yourselves. But let me touch Uganda. Uganda had 19 million voters. 9 million disappeared. The winner in Uganda got about 7 million. 9 million. No, 7 million. You can look for the results. The loser and the others got about 3 million. Bob Wine got about 4 million. Now, the 9 million disappeared. Go to every country where biometrics was used. It doesn't pass 30 million mark. Someone has programmed these machines on Nigerian elections. And I have now a very big, we are now exchanging good. Some people are saying, hold the fire. We can't hold the fire. 94 million registered voters in Nigeria registered to vote. Miriam, excuse me, even if you are so stupid, you mean 60 million people just decided to sit home? And when the Electoral Commission chairman of Nigeria was asked to open the BVRs, what did he say? He said he can't open them now. There was a malfunctioning. And he went ahead to hold another election of the governors. The machines collapsed. He cancelled the election. Have you seen that? Go and look at the figures that elected the governors. I bet you laugh. I bet you laugh. And then you will agree with me that the imperialists have fixed these machines to molest us, to fight over them every day, every 5 years. If Africans are not listening to me, you will listen to me as a black professor. One day, The problem is that Africans listen to white professors. But when a black professor brings something, he's doubted. But you check for me why a total of 68 million people disappear, go to heaven or hell, then come back. Even if you said the voter apathy, which is explained, the British government, American government in Nigeria never complained. Did you see that? They never complained about the absence of 68 million people. Nigeria has a president who was elected by 24 million people out of a population of 220 million people. Is this a president of Nigeria or a president of a zoo factory somewhere? What do you expect? Where did this 68 designed to people cast their vote and their vote disappeared? Are you seeing that? Because there are people who have gone to court in Nigeria who are saying no. We even had a voter turnout of the younger men who came in huge numbers. You remember, they were voting for one of the candidates they liked most.
But also places like the southern part, the Igbo.
The southeastern part of Igbo land.
They did not vote, so also that is a factor.
It's a factor, yes, fine. But then, surely 68 million. If it was just like 10 million, you can understand. But 68 million, a population of about 10 African countries, smaller countries like this Rwanda here, this Rwanda, Burundi, Rwanda, Burundi, Togo, the Gabon. Look at their population, South Sudan, add them. They all add up to that population of 68 million or more, or less. Now, that means 10 African countries combined together did not vote. Is this the country? Is this the type of thing that you want on African continent? Isn't it time for you, people in Africa, to think, to sit and think? Do they look at Zimbabwe? Look at Zimbabwe. They had a population of 11 million people, voters. Only 6 million voters turned up. 5 million voters went to heaven or hell and returned because they used the PVR machines. So for me, I leave it there for anybody who can guess and tell me why the figures of the winners are designed around 8, 7, 6, 5, they add there. Why doesn't this machine pick 32 million voters for Tinubu? I'm asking a question, Miriam. Why?
Because maybe the 32 did not turn up to vote.
No, please don't.
There was a serious problem with voter apathy, Doc, and we talked about this even before the elections.
Let's give voter apathy
the Naira crisis, the what,
yes, let's
the
give a voter
Naira.
Medium, my daughter. Even if you say that we could excuse it to about 20 million, they did not turn up. But surely 68 million. Naira is not in the hands. And yet we are being told, you have read some reports that one of the candidates had a vote for youth. The youth vote.
But you know,
some youth.
Look, they just vote on Twitter. They don't turn up really to vote physically. So that is also something.
They
support and they keep trending on social media, but lining up, they're very lazy. They don't want to. Okay. I know them. I know them around here. So maybe it was the same case.
For the sake of Uganda, were we on the media? 90 million people? No. We came out. The Ugandan population came out. In fact, it came out because the Electoral Commission changed the tactics at 11 and said close all those PVRs and we go manual. I'm telling you, after using manual halfway, he said close it. Eh? Because it was going to show a shame. It was going to show a shame. Miriam, you tell me that is voter apathy?
Now, for Uganda, it's different. I think the circumstances are different. And also, we have to remember the militarized presence of the military in Uganda during the voting and the intimidation. Also, that was a factor that got some people scared. They didn't want to come out and...
No. Contrary to that, after the chairman announced that the VVR will not be used, people poured to go and vote physically. People poured. They gave this guy almost 5 million votes. Against Museveni, 7 point something million. My friend, they came out. So imagine if, because the guys saw, if they had to go by the time BVR, there was going to be an embarrassment, a very big embarrassment. God divine saw that this thing could turn up. The type of voters who turned up this time to vote for Chagulanyi were many.
So the government manipulated the process because they knew they were going to... Or what happened?
Can you make get a conclusion?
From what you're saying, so do we blame the machines or do we blame the manipulation by the authorities?
No, but they manipulated through the machines. Had they stopped, had they not stopped the machine, it could have shown exactly what had been programmed. But they saw the machines were going to embarrass them. When they come out with all these people who have come and you have told them to wait on the queue until tomorrow morning, even if it means tomorrow morning, they wait. They sat down. There are places where people said, don't touch us, we are seated here until we vote. In Uganda, they were determined, especially in the Buganda region. They were very determined to vote. But something went wrong. So tamper-proof electoral systems in Africa can create us a better development of economically, because we waste more time on elections, we waste more time on democracy, which we don't know the concepts. Let's be very honest. Apart from Miriam, who is educated and I wonder, who else can tell me what the concepts of democracy are? What are they? Go to the village in Trans-Nzoia and ask one man, call him, what is democracy? He said, Rera Haruru. Rera Haruru. I'm sorry to speak this vernacular from here. We are going to vote. Bring the vote. That's democracy. That's what the people in Trans-Nzoia say. Go to Uganda, in my place in Bugisu. You ask them what is one concept of democracy. He said to vote. Ring it. You shall vote Chagulanyi. And they voted Chagulanyi. Finished. If you ask them why they voted Chagulanyi, they have to look for Professor MATSANGA to explain why they voted for Mr. Chagulanyi and not Mr. Museveni. I'm now because people say I talk about their country, I no longer talk about your country. I'm sorry, Madam Miriam, enjoy. Enjoy. But I will talk about my own country. Give my own examples. I have no problem with President Museveni. And for me, when the president has been declared by the Supreme Court, I have no problem. That's the end of me. I don't argue. I don't argue with Museveni anymore. Wait for 5 years, and he brings his son. We chop each other through the vote. There are people going to be voted in. You want to touch their vote. So for us, we are determined. My country, for example, that's what I talk. I want my tamper-proof electoral system in my country, Uganda, so that we have No fight. We don't kill anyone. We don't. The winner, if you have defeated me properly, Mohos, you go home. I will go home and sit in Mount Elgon and look after my monkeys in the Elgon forests. Isn't it, Mr. Wanda? And if I've won a seat, I can come a seat. Unfortunately, one of my children wants the seat, so I won't be able to manage. I can't compete with my own daughter. I leave the thing for them. But if you have defeated me, I'll sit back home. Because if the process is tamper-proof, why do you need, Wanda, do you need to quarrel? But the quarrels come, Miriam, because the process is not tamper-proof. The electoral systems are not tamper-proof. South African electoral system is tamper-proof. They have a post, and what is that system called? They have proportional representation system, which allows every area to have no quarrel. The vote well sorted. You vote. The Westminster. The problem that most of these African countries have got, they have borrowed constitutions from America and borrowed constitution from Britain. A hybrid constitution, Miriam, will cause you very dangerous. You might kill each other until God comes to separate you. I rest my case. Wanda. Mr. Elvis Wanda, your final comments as we end, Miriam, because there is nothing else to say here. We have done our 1 hour. Then if Wanda, make your comments, and Miriam can make any other comments. We call it a day. If you say is voter apathy, there is yes, to some extent, but you have to convince me near Angel Gabriel that 68 million only disappeared because of voter apathy. And then the machine cannot pass 30 million mark. Hey! I discovered this. Some people are calling me now to say, don't talk about this thing. Don't talk, please. Somebody very serious from Cambridge University saying, my doctor, don't do this. Because these machines, what were they designed to? What? Why is it the rotation is around 80 million, 70 million, 6 million, 4 million? Then Tunubu comes with 8.2. The machine walks around 24 million. Surely 24 out of 94 million registered voters, Miriam, voter apathy. Why didn't the chairman of the Electoral Commission of Nigeria not allow the Cargo Manifest? I rest my case. When he was asked about the Cargo Manifest, he says it is not necessary. Because the Cargo Manifest will tell you exactly what is in the box and what is outside the box and what is in that machine. So in Nigeria, they will swear their president, and the things are very serious that they might, the swearing could become the courts. The courts there have become, some of them were waiting for Mr. Buhari to get tired. The courts could cancel, could nullify the election. In Nigeria, the courts, be careful, you watch me. The courts there, the Supreme Court could nullify this election. Because they are getting ideas from people like MATSANGA now. Look at the boxes. Look at the Cargo Manifest. We could go to another election. So Buhari, they could be here for another 6 months, more or 7. I'm telling you, the type of annoyance there. Now, when you see the governors, the ruling party getting less governors compared to the other one, then you tell me, why was the vote not balancing? And the winning in places where the governor, the party was popular, and the opposition party won there very heavily. They are balancing. This thing could go, courts could make history, like your courts in Kenya made history by nullifying the 2017 elections. I rest my case. Nigeria is a bad example of bad electoral systems. We need tamper-proof systems in Africa. Wanda.
On one, I'll agree with you that on voter apathy, it's never the case as it's always amplified. Like I'll fail in person, I fail to agree on a case that out of 10 people, only 2 or 3 chooses to vote. Then 7 decides to go home or decides not to vote. Then from where I sit, I feel like these people normally vote in big numbers, but there is always a problem with this server that we always hear or see. I mean, politicians, other politicians talk about. Like, why is it that opening of the server has always been a problem? Does it mean that what is in the server reads the 70 million, the 80 million? But what we got, it's just a figure that somebody decided to write. But I will still go ahead and blame ourselves that we are still using the imperialist technologies and everything to get the leaders. Why are we so convinced that will work in our favor? I'll as well buy into Miriam's mission when she was talking about democracy and the election democracy designed based on the needs of a region or a country. That's the very best thing that we can ever do as a continent or as nations. That if today we have a democracy in Nigeria that is designed, election democracy designed in respect to Nigerians, then, I mean, they'll get it right. But we have election democracy in Kenya that is American-like. Then are we having Kenyan American or we are just having Kenya? It has always made me to believe that democracy or the kind of election democracy we are having in Africa was never, I mean, it was not African, and it will never work unless we go with African democracy, election democracy. Like if we had our own, like you go in Uganda, then they have their own way of electing leaders. You go in Botswana, they have their own way of electing leaders. Then the election democracy will work. But we ended up defining democracy to mean elections. Then we missed out on elections by exercising or practicing the Western elections in Africa. To me, that one will never work because we are having a blend of culture. And this blend of culture, it's more, I mean, the outcome, the results are from outside, but whoever, I mean, but the people are from from a different quarter. Therefore, if we go with, if it is America, they do the American things and entirely everything is America. It's not a mistake. It's not criminal to go and benchmark and pick what is good and come with it. But it's very wrong to get the full package, carry the full package. Then you want to, you want to implement the full package. it will always have a clash in culture. Back to the topic as I learned, it is very true, very, very true that imperialism has destabilized Africa, looking into slavery, that we are still enslaved even in the way we do things. The enslavement base, either social or economy, generally cut across. The slavery bit of it is still eating into us. We are still struggling. The world wars from itself, the world wars destabilized Africa's economy. That any other time they fought, they knew they'll recover by looting from Africa. Therefore, these world wars destabilized Africa. In very big magnitudes. That even when they felt like we now don't want to fight, they only now designed a post-colonial imperialism, which, they still wanted to recover from the Second World War. But because they didn't want to get into a war, they felt like, okay, let us stop colonization, but practice imperialism in different versions. And therefore, as a yield, imperialism has and it's still affecting us as nations, as continents. But let us get back to the drawing board, look into the African Union as a union that will probably be able now that it is a continental issue. Then we go back to the African Union, we look at it properly, so that we now imagine that we'll come to an end of imperialism. Because one nation, one region will not walk out from this. If I'm told, the continent at large or a number of countries are still under it. And the only way we'll be able to address it is when the African Union now gets back to the drawing board, looks at imperialism, looks at colonization, then the post-colonization. Then they should ask themselves if indeed we are still under imperialism, to which we are still under it, then start looking into how do we then walk out from it. They should be in a position to look into elections. Then look at these elections. Are they African based? Are we getting what we want? Or they should be in a position to advise their members on the way forward in terms of elections. We cannot be using billions and billions, but we have gadgets that somebody tells you, I cannot open for you. I cannot have you go and, look at 1, 2, 3, I'll be tampering with it. Then why are we wasting money with this? Therefore, I feel like the African Union should be in a position now to go back to the drawing board, to these words, look into the elections, and advise their members. Because we keep losing properties, we keep losing lives any other time we have elections. We keep having African Union now coming in to advise the nations, like have a sitting, negotiate, bring to an end the temperatures, like what we had the other day in Kenya. The African Union came in now advising Raila Odinga and President Ruto to toe down and sit down and talk. But it all revolves around elections. Therefore, as the head or as a union, then let them advise, look into the elections, analyze our elections, analyze the democracies, imperialism, and everything in general, then start advising their members accordingly. Miriam.
Okay, thank you. Doc.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Oh my God, I still insist, and I still say there is something wrong beyond utter apathy. If I'm wrong, there's wait and see. You can't tell me that you have a population of 100 million people and 45 million people like Congo will register to vote. The Congolese voter registration was about 46 million the other time. Watch in Congo, they are using the same machines. It won't reach 30. So what will you be doing with 20? You can say Congo is big. Some pygmies are not coming to vote. Some are still hunting the monkeys down there. That is all. That's okay. But to have a chunk of 68 million people disappearing from your register, it is too hard to believe, but well, if there is a space where they went, still it backs to the same point, Miriam. Let's have tamper-proof electoral systems in Africa. That's all. Tamper-proof, that will not cause us trouble, that will not create doubts, that will not create suspicion, that will not give us conflicts after the results have been announced. That is the point of this topic of global trends today. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching us. We shall be back tomorrow with another topic on security and other matters. Other than that, I wish you a happy Sunday in Kenya. Enjoy your sunshine while we enjoy our winter wherever we are. It is soon we shall also be in the sunshine running, because sunshine in Britain is proportioned by God. So you have to run for it. Any day you lose, one day when it has opened, you have lost. So unlike Miriam cannot, she's going to have Easter. And by the way, this is an Easter week. I did not wish you happy triumphant in Jerusalem. We are on our way towards Jerusalem. We have requested for a donkey. We want to go and chase out thieves from the temple of Jerusalem. So we be prepared. If you're a thief, by Friday, before you kill us, actually, the chasing of thieves is tomorrow. Tomorrow in the Christian calendar is to chase thieves. So across Africa, we shall be chasing thieves. Those who steal out of the temples, out of our kanisa. Toka kanisa, tokeni. So there you are. Okay. Wanda, I hope wherever you are in Kenya, you'll also tell somebody, please, you are doing business in my father's temple. And it is tomorrow, by the way. There was no other day. On Thursday, Jesus will have the Last Supper. Those who don't know the Bible or who have forgotten, Last Supper will be Thursday, and he will be betrayed on Thursday. But tomorrow is chasing thieves out of the temple. He is now walking from Jericho, anakuja kutoka Jericho, which is 24 furlongs. It's called a furlong. Do you know how many miles are those, Mr. Wanda? You are a teacher. Tafuta the word furlong. Tafuta furlong. What is a furlong? How many miles are those from Jerusalem? And he was on a donkey. He told people, go ahead. I want to enter this house with a new style, a new tactic. Is Africa prepared to enter a new life, a new high, by having tamper-proof elections? Full stop. I rest my case, Miriam. Bye-bye. Thank you, all of you, for coming.